We have no idea what other people in other countries are facing or sitting in a room like this. And amazing. And when you read those stories, it's overwhelming, isn't it? To hear what's going on in the persecuted church. But don't expect that it's going to last here very long. We know that, don't we? You can see these things moving in that direction. So we're going to have to know what we believe, right? Like we were talking about last night, so that we can give an answer to every man that asketh us the reason of the hope that lies within us with meekness and fear. And there's the key. It's meekness and fear, is knowing strength under control and yet showing kindness and love. And that's what we're supposed to do, speak the truth in love. Now, the truth has to be spoken, doesn't it? We can't just go along with the lies. So we've got to make sure we're going the right direction, and we have that connection. Okay, so let's find out between the Hebrews and the Greeks. Tonight, what was the color of Brother Andrew's car? Oh, gals, I'm telling you, they're just quick on the draw. Either that or they like color. How many of you have blue is your favorite color? There you go. I'll join you on that one. I like that. And also, he went to a town that was out in the middle of nowhere with just some huts, and one praying lady was there. Can anybody remember the name of that town? Well, you're getting close. Naski. That kind of sounds like something down south you drive around, but we're getting there. Nice work. Oh. Nosaki. That's very interesting. And, incredibly, I don't know, you think about it. We did this drama a few weeks ago in Ohio, but the agents came in the back door, and we had a few of the regular people that were running for the hills. One of the ladies grabbed onto another husband and held on to him and said, "What's going on?" Afterwards, she confessed. And I'm glad the man did too. That was good. But she said, "I was so scared. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen." And you just never know. But we're blessed in our country, are we not, to do that? How many times did he preach in Yugoslavia in those 50 days? 80 times. Boy, that's amazing, isn't it? All right, in our Bible story today, what was the name of the king? Josiah. Wow, that's good. That was a man's voice right here in this row. That's right. Okay. And the name of the priest who's credited for finding the scroll was Hilkiah. Hilkiah the priest, or Hilkiah. All right. Okay, so in our story today, King Josiah calls the people and he says, "Who will stand with me?" I hope that when you are put to the test, that you will stand for God. It's easy when the whole crowd's doing it. It's another thing altogether when you're all by yourself, right? So let's go quickly, and we'll find some things out. I got a little a game we're going to play. We'll see if we have time. Otherwise, we'll work it tomorrow night. But tonight, we want to get right in because we got a lot to cover, and so we want to make sure that we do that and this way. I have a book that's out on our table, and I thought I had my copy right here. I'm going to look and see if I do. I guess I don't. Miss Cora, if you could grab me that, I would appreciate it. I guess I misplaced it, and I would appreciate that. But this is a great book. It's out on our table. I was given this book, and my wife and I began to read it. It's 100 Bible verses that made America great. And consequently, my wife and I read through, we've been through 97 chapters now. They're only 3 or 4 pages long, and I wouldn't get too worried about reading too much, but really about our country. Robert Morgan is the writer. He is such an excellent writer, and I love it. Some writers are no good, and some writers are very good, but they're not very interesting to read. Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate that so much. So right at the beginning of this book, let me just share with you what it says, because you're down here in this good land, and I think it'll be a reminder for us. April 30, 1789, the Virginian, tall and stately and ramrod straight, stepped onto the crowded second-floor balcony of the old Federal Building in lower Manhattan, and he took his place beside a large decorative Bible. A thunderous roar erupted from the sea of people on Wall Street, followed by tense silence as everyone strained to hear the man's voice. He would not say much, only 2 words. But both syllables would shape the ages to come. This man was about to change history. He was going to take the oath of office as the first president of the United States. What was his name? George Washington. And General Washington, I love the way he describes this, was dressed in a modest, double-breasted brown suit with buttons embossed with eagles. A sword dangled at his side. Can you see President Biden with one of those? Let's go on. His face was careworn. The Bible before him, bound in rich brown leather, had been hastily borrowed from the altar of the nearby St. John's Lodge. It rested on a red cushion held by Samuel Otis, Secretary of the Senate, and it was open to Genesis 49. This is a passage that contains the blessings of Jacob to his children who were destined to become a great nation. Remember that? And so after placing his hand on the Bible, the general listened to the oath of office, which was quoted by Robert Livingston, Chancellor of New York. And after hearing these final words, "Will you preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States?" General Washington said those 2 words. "I do." Yeah. And then he did something extraordinary. To the thrill of the crowd, in full view of posterity, he removed his hand from Genesis 49, and he reverently bent down and kissed the Bible. "It is done," Livingston cried to the crowd. "Long live George Washington, President of the United States." The multitude burst into cheers and shouting and yelling and weeping and rejoicing as the father of the nation quietly turned and disappeared into the building to give his inaugural address to the members of Congress. And in that speech, General Washington made this very important statement. Guys, I think I lost my, there we go. This Bible before him, we were just talking about it there, but he made this very important statement. He said, "The propitious smiles of heaven can never be expected on a nation that disregards the eternal rules of order and right, which heaven itself has ordained." How are we doing with the eternal rules of order and right? What has happened in our country in these last few years, right? Now, I'm not just talking about COVID. I'm talking about all the stuff that's going on. It's amazing, isn't it? What do you think he's talking about when he says the eternal rules of order and right? He's talking about the commandments, she said? Talking about the Bible, right? The Bible is eternal, right? And it's the only thing that is eternal, and that's the amazing thing. So I guess my question tonight is, do you need a ruler? Just like our country needs a ruler. I like this one. This is my handy-dandy ruleration. I like that. That's a good one. Whoa. Oh, sorry, watch out. And I love that. You know, a ruler sometimes is saying, did any of you have a wooden ruler and had a little metal strip on the side of it? Remember that? And then when plastic came in, we got plastic rulers, and you could go like wapple, 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 wapple. And that was so much fun. Did you have it in your little school box? Yeah, because you never knew when you were going to be doing a drawing project or something. And that's always interesting. I had a friend of mine up in West Virginia, and he came to me, and he said, "Randy," he said, "I understand that you got a house." This was a few years ago. And we had a place in Greenville, South Carolina, while our kids were in college there at Bob Jones University. And he said, "Do you need any help?" And I said, "Oh, boy, do I need help. I mean, this is a fixer-upper." And we knew it was when we got it. And we were just amazed. That kitchen, it was a narrow kitchen, but it had carpet in the kitchen. How do you like that? All right, not a good idea. The dishwasher, which surprised me, was on one side of the kitchen, and the sink was on the other. Now, guess what was on the carpet between the dishwasher and the sink? Oh, it was sick. I said, honey, we got to get this out of here. And finally, after some time, I looked online, and somebody was taking their cupboards out of their house and putting new fancy ones in. And I went and looked at them. I said, those are pretty fancy. I'll take the old ones. And so we refinished the kitchen that way, and it turned out beautiful. And Mike was helping me. And it wasn't a big kitchen, but when we got it all done, I was very pleased. My wife was happy about it. We sold the house and never, ever used the kitchen. That's just the way it goes. You know. But we were working on hanging those cupboards, and if you guys have hung cupboards, you know what it's like. And Mike pulls out his handy-dandy folding rule. And I go, Mike, come on, you got to get up with the times, man. Look at this. Retractable. Cool, huh? He would twist his little folding rule like that. He'd hold it up against the ceiling, stay off the ladder, and he'd say, okay, that's 24 1/4. And meanwhile, I'm doing this with mine, trying to get it up. And he said, sometimes just because something's older doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't work best. Right? Your Bible, the same way. Don't forget it. And so I was talking with him, and I thought, man, that's interesting, a rule. We used to have reading and writing and arithmetic. You remember that? Taught to the tune of another stick. You remember that one? What kind of a stick was that? A hickory stick, right? You say, some of you young people are going, what in the world? I got a clue what he's talking about. We were at Thomas Edison's boyhood home in Milan, Ohio, and my kids are with me. And the lady says, now up behind the clock, you'll notice on the shelf, there's an old hickory stick up there. She said, I bet your kids don't know what that was used for. I said, oh, just go ahead and try. My parents were old-fashioned, and, that's okay. I love them to death. Thank God they knew where the edge was. I knew where the edge was, and I knew when I was in trouble. And I'm so glad. They applied the Board of Education to the seat of learning, starting with the bare facts from bottom up, usually mine. And man, did I learn. I learned. In fact, my mom, when my sister and I got married the same summer, she took a yardstick that we had. She used it all the time. It was a 36-inch metal yardstick. Now, I know you're going to get weird here and think my mother was an abuser, but I'm telling you, I love my mother. If she walked in here now at 85, I would run back there and hug her neck. I love my mom. I thank God for her. But she cut it at 18 inches, gave half of it to my sister and half to me, and she said, I just want you to know I love you. Hey, we figured it out. A little pain on the backside was good, A little pain up front, a lot of pleasure. A little pleasure up front, a lot of pain. That's the way life works. And the Bible has instructions, rules, guidelines. That's what the Bible is, right? It keeps us out of that mess. And so we were reading, writing, arithmetic. And so anyway, anybody remember one of those? What was that? You do. Boy, somebody better come home and take a picture, or you could sell it on eBay for big money, I think. Oh, you don't want to get rid of it. No. You remember those algorithms we used to have in the back of the algebra book? Wow, that was something. That was one of those days, without a doubt. Well, I was reading an article last week by Breitbart News, and it simply said this: mathematicians, China rises as the world's STEM leader. STEM, acrostic. S for what? Science, T. Technology, E. Engineering. M, math. Yeah. He said 79% of the people who are engaged now in this kind of education and research, 79% of them are foreign-born in our country. And by the way, the jobs for those items are shrinking. Now, there's a reason why that happens. And this article is a fascinating article. You could Google it and find it just as easily as I could. If you looked up Breitbart and you looked up China and mathematicians, and you will find it. And it's a fascinating article, and it tells there, in 2018, among the countries of the world, China was first in math, and we were 28th. 28th. What's wrong with us? You know what the article said? America's worried about diversity. And do you know what China wants? A merit-based education where 2 + 2 = 4. And we've got a mess on our hands. You understand what I'm saying? In Minnesota, one math teacher, she said, what's the answer to 2 + 2? And all the kids raised their hands. She said, no, get into groups of 4 or 5 and discuss it. And that's what they did. And when they came out at the end of the time, Some of them said the answer is 5. Some said 6. Some said 8. And the teacher put up both hands and said, you're all right. You see, it's not about what the real answer is. It's what the group thinks that counts. They call it synthesis education. It's junk. And we have a problem. We got a whole generation of young people, they don't even know right from wrong. They don't know the difference, and this is our problem. It all stems together, and now we've got racist math in California, you know what I'm talking about, and all this kind of stuff, and you just wonder how in the world are we going to keep scratching our heads without losing all of our hair and figuring out what is going on in our country. So we got to read and write arithmetic. But in Deuteronomy chapter 6, if you take your Bibles and go there, Deuteronomy chapter number 6, watch there because it's beautiful. You're going to notice it talks about in verse number 4, it talks about loving God. This is the Shema. The Jews recite it every morning. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt what? Love the Lord thy God with all thy and soul, and there you go. And Jesus comes along and he adds a little bit to it, but he also says in Deuteronomy chapter 6, you're going to learn some guidelines. And notice this because in Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse number 6, somebody read that out loud, 6:6. Okay, so he says God made some commands, didn't he? They're supposed to be in your heart. And what are you supposed to do in verse 7? You got to teach them to your children. And how are you going to teach them to your children? When are you going to do that? Look what he says in verse number 7 there, right? He says, when thou shalt talk of them, when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And he says, thou shalt bind them for a sign on thy hand. So we're going to learn some guidelines. But he also says that we're going to have some good living. If we love God and we learn his guidelines, you're going to be living good. How many of you want to live good? Well, hey, we're all in that boat, right? I mean, like to have good for your family. I think that's great. Talking about good, here's Greg Epstein. He's the new chaplain's president at Harvard. He's an atheist. Shameful. He wrote a book called Good Without God. So I got to thinking about it, and I thought, wow, if that's the case, if you take God out of good, guess what? What do you got left? Nothing. Absolutely. You can't have good without God. Did you know that? Good is God. And that's an amazing thing. We're in trouble in our culture. By the way, in Harvard, I mean, there's a plaque right on the corner of the street there, and it says this school is dedicated to the propagation of the gospel. And we've gone a long way from that. So we've tried something other than that that's good. So we're learning some guidelines. I got to thinking about this, and I thought, you know, if school is life and the professors are the parents and the students are the children, then the curriculum is the commandments, according to his word. Okay? So we get that straight. And he said, watch this, you're going to bind them on your, as frontlets before thine eyes. And so this is what the Jews do. They're phylacteries and they're tefillin, and they wrap it around their arm. They form the letter shin, the Hebrew letter shin, which is very, very important around their hand, their non-writing hand. And then they also have these mezuzahs that sit cockeyed on the side of the door. And inside the mezuzah and inside their little box of their phylacteries on their heads, these are the commandments. And oftentimes Deuteronomy chapter 6 is in there in small form. And they touch that. And so they started to take it literally, and that's good. But God is talking here. You got to teach this to your kids, not just a matter of wearing it. You got to teach it to them. You got to get these things to your kids. So if that's the case, then we see that the classroom is the world. That's the classroom. So how are we going to do that? We're going to live good by the commandments. And you'll notice here in verse number 2 of chapter 6, he says that thou mightest what? Fear the Lord. This will cause you to fear the Lord when you know what he wants us to do. And that's important. Look over at verse 24. I love this verse. Look what he says. He says, and the Lord commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear the Lord our God. Next 4 words. Say it out loud. For our good always. Wow. Isn't that something? For our good always. God wants your good. And he wants us. You say, well, he's talking to the Jews. Absolutely. But I'm telling you, when we follow his way and do his work and follow his word, guess what we get? We get his best. That's the awesome thing about it. It's for our good. And that's what he says. If we just fear the Lord and we would keep his commandments and then not forget his goodness and follow his rules. That's what we got to do. It's real simple. We make this hard, don't we? Like, I'm going to try something different. And I'm just amazed at that. So God gave, the children of Israel were sick, so God gave them 2 tablets. And those tablets were confining the 10 Commandments. Now, there's actually a whole lot more than that. The Old Testament tells us there's 365 thou shalt nots. What's that remind you of? Well, we got one for every day, don't we? Wake up, thou shalt not. Thou shalt not. And there's 248 thou shalts. Nothing wrong with that. Now add that up, and how many commandments actually do we have in the Torah? We're getting there. Change the numbers around. And by the way, if you take that number and make it into John 3:16, that's a good option, isn't it? 613 commandments. You say, wow, I can't remember all those. I like what Augustine said. He said this. He said, love God and do as you please. That's pretty good, isn't it? If you just love God, watch what will happen. Every time we try to love anything else, we're going to have trouble. So, well, we got to talk about what are those. This is where we're going to find them. What's that? Where do we find the commandments? Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy chapter 5. So you could go either place, and that's a fascinating study, but let's take them tonight and make sure we get them. So we're going to teach the kids tonight as well, but I'm going to teach you so you can teach your kids and grandkids, all right? So we're going to do this real simple. I'll give you 2 words, and I'll try to hang on to this while I'm doing it. Number 1 is one God. Put up one finger, just like that. There you go. One God. That's nice, okay? Thou shalt have no other gods before me, right? Okay? Number 2, thou shalt not bow down thyself to any graven image. There you go. Number 2, don't bow down. That's good. Does that finger work like that? There you go. I like that. He cocked it down, okay? Number 3, don't swear, or in other words, thou shalt not take the name of the what? Lord thy God in vain. Number 3 looks like a W, doesn't it? Words. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Don't take it in vain. I was having some work done on my RV. Those guys were changing out my tires, great big 22.5-inch tires, and those things are massive, and they got this big stuff out there going, and they're doing all that. I'm telling you, those boys out there talked more about God and Jesus than anybody I've heard in a church. Do you know what I'm talking about? And I went out and I said, hey, guys, we got a lot in common here. I'm a preacher. and you know what? There's a somebody that you can talk to about this. Because when people swear, they swear by their highest authority. And that's what I usually say. I'm not trying to be cute or rude to you, but you realize that you just acknowledge that God is the supreme being. And he ought to rule your life. When I hear people say, oh my God, all the time, OMG. And I usually say, is he really? And they go, oh, that's just something I say. Well, I say, you ought to be careful about what you say. And you can have a personal relationship with God through his son, Jesus. Now, I mean, it's a great opportunity for witness. Don't be smart. Don't be rude. But what a great opportunity there is. Now, by the way, sometimes Christians use some Christianese. We should just call it slang, right? Like what? For the name of God. That's right. Gosh. The man upstairs. Golly. Geez. You say, oh, it's just something I say. Well, find another word. But don't take the name of God down through the gutter, right? I mean, if you smash your finger in a hammer, Randy Merrill, you could use my name. That's okay. I don't care. Maybe Pastor Allison wouldn't mind. I don't know, you know. Or Fred. Yeah. Or you can even say President. No, you wouldn't say that. Hey, but listen, don't take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Number 3. Number 4, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, because on that day God rested. Number 4, God rested. Okay. Now, number 5, I love number 5. Honor thy, this is sign language, father and mother. Okay? Or you could just go, yes, sir. That works too. Yes, ma'am. I like that. Number 5, father and mother. Now, this is my favorite one. Number 6. Put my wand down here. 6 fingers. Thou shalt not what? Kill. That's right. Don't aim it at anybody. Just at your hand, okay? There you go. That's number 6, all right? So that's not hard. Now, let's try number 7. Thou shalt not what? Commit adultery. 5 on this hand, 2 on this hand. Put these 2 together. These 2 are a couple married for life. They're not playing around over here, and this one over here is not playing around over here or shacking up or anything else. These 2 are committed for life. Got it? Thou shalt not commit adultery. That's very important. We got problems in our culture, don't we? Yeah, we don't understand it. Okay, so number 8. This is a good one. Don't steal. Thou shalt not steal. In some countries, when they would catch someone for stealing, they would cut their thumbs off. That way they couldn't grab anything. They didn't have an opposing digit. So there you go. Number 8, if you steal, guess what? You end up in jail. All right. Hey, I like the way you did that. That's good. Okay. Number 8, no thumbs. Phew. All right. Number 9, thou shalt not bear what? False witness. Thou shalt not lie. Okay. 4 in this hand, 5 in this hand. Guess what? 4. Does 4 equal 5? No. The answer is what? False. Does 5 equal 4? No. Again, the answer is false. So do it this way. Put one hand in the air, put the other hand on the Bible. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God, right? Okay, so don't bear false witness against your neighbor. You got it? 4 and 5. Good. Number 10, thou shalt not covet. Arr, I'm going to get that. I got to have that. My neighbor's got that. Oh, my neighbor's got a new truck, a new cow. He's got to do something. He's got it. I'm going to get it, okay? Number 10. Okay, now let's practice, okay? I'm going to give you one. You tell me what it is. Here we go. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. Very good. Thou shalt not kill. There you go. Ooh, thou shalt not commit adultery. Very good. That's 7, okay? Let's try this one. No idols, right? Okay? No graven images. There you go. One God. Thou shalt have no other gods before thee. One God. Very good. Okay? To keep the Sabbath day. That's right. Very good. What number? 5. Very good. And how about this one? Thou shalt not covet. Very good. These kids are coming on in. I want to go further with this, but I want you not to forget that, because you can go home, practice, teach your kids, teach your grandkids the law of God. Now, why is it important? Listen to me carefully. Here's why. Because verse 25 of chapter 6 says, it shall be our righteousness. But guess what? You and I will never get righteous through the law, will we? We get to the New Testament, guess what we find out? Christ is our righteousness. The law is only a tutor. It's a schoolmaster to bring us to Christ. It reveals that we're all bad. We got sin in our lives and there's no hope for us. What are we going to do? We need a Savior. And here comes Jesus. He fulfilled the law. And you and I can get to the gospel easy through the 10 Commandments. All right? We got way more to do, but we can't now. The kids got to do it, and you got to get to the refreshments. So, hey, listen. Come back tomorrow. We're going to have more fun. All right?